How to do an investment raise cheaply. All right, so this is specific to filmmakers. Now, if you're raising money of any kind, you're going to find this helpful. So, in this video, I'm an entertainment attorney and I'm going to go through what I speak with a lot of filmmakers about because raising money for your production is just something that you end up doing at one point or another. And there are really, really big missteps that happen for filmmakers as they're going through this process. And I'm hoping that you will be able to get all the information that you need out of this video. And maybe you don't even need to hire an attorney. So, the first thing I just want to point out is that, if you are raising money in the traditional sense and you're taking investment dollars from someone, what you have may be considered a security, which means what you're doing falls under federal law and regulations. So it means you can't just take money from anybody and be like, yeah, I have an investor. Cool. Give me $20,000. And, if we make money, I'll get you paid back. That's not quite how it works. You are required by securities law to actually give disclosures and pro formas and go through all these steps and file things with the Securities and Exchange Commission. But there are ways to do this so that you can basically sidestep all federal regulations and do this very inexpensively. So the first thing is, of course, you need to put together a budget. All right. If you are anticipating a certain type of film that you're going to do, you need to line item it. And if you don't know what a budget looks like, you might be really new to this, and that's okay. Please, please, please go and search on Google and find an example of a film budget and the type of line items that you need to be kind of, including in your actual budget. But then the most important thing after that is a pitch deck. So with a general pitch deck, it's the overview of all the things that you plan to do with the investment dollars, how you're going to apply it, and specifically, here's the categories that you need to include in your pitch deck. I definitely recommend that you do this in like a PowerPoint. Super easy to edit, to put together. You can draw pictures, but you can do this all kinds of ways. My recommendation is I love PowerPoint, just use it, right? But anyway, as far as the categories, start out easy breezy. Who are you? What's your company about if you have an LLC? So a little overview of basically the brand and then talk about what it is that you're doing. Hi, I'm this person. We are fundraising for this particular production. And here's an example of our budget. Okay, so our intended budget for this film, it's a super low feature film, $200,000. Okay, and you'll get into more of what the exact line items are later on in the pitch deck. So for right now, it's just a quick overview. So you go, we're here today. We're raising this amount of money. Here's the opportunity. You go, we're doing a sci-fi thriller, and here are some other films similar to ours that have brought in this amount of revenue. Okay, and then you want to bring in examples. So pull from movies that have been released. What are the revenue numbers that they've done? And give some diversity, right? Don't necessarily go to like the blockbuster and say, this was Iron Man and this is what it did. And so this is what we're going to do. Make it believable. Compare your project to other similar types of projects. Maybe you are going by, for more of an impact. You go, we think we're going to make some money here. But really what we're looking at is impact. This is as a social cause. This has maybe a religious or political kind of message to it. So all good stuff, depending on who your target audience is that you're pitching this to. So then you also go into, other than comparing other films, let's look at the market in general. You go, right now, this type of film does really well. So we anticipate that your return on investment is very high. There's a high likelihood you're going to make your money back. And it's because of all these things. So other than that, you're also going to go through and guess what else you should talk about? Your team. Who's on your team? Why is this thing going to be a fantastic success? Well, it's not just because of you as, the brand leader, the owner of the company, the director, the producer, whoever you are in this particular production, but talk about the rest of your team as well. And that can definitely help to sell the trustworthiness of what you're doing, because then you just look like you are together and organized. And then, of course, now we're going to get a little bit more nitty gritty into the budget. So now line item stuff and say, we anticipate for actual production costs will probably be in $150,000. Here's kind of a breakdown of what that looks like. The rest of the money, maybe 50K, we're going to pour into marketing. And so we're going to do, direct marketing because this will be sold and distributed in this kind of way. And then, of course, talk about how are you going to sell the film? How are you going to distribute the film? So really laying out what happens from point A to point Z and all the things in between, including acquisition, we plan on selling, we plan on being acquired. Talk about all of that, which means you have to think about all of that. And again, as far as, a pitch deck, how long should this be? I've done pitch decks for things that I've done investment raises for, and feel good time is maybe about 45 minutes. So once you have something put together, please be sure, make sure there's no typos in it, make sure it's as concise as possible. People don't want to waste their time, but then run it. Because oftentimes we will do these presentations in front of someone or maybe in a Zoom kind of meeting and try to make it around, 45 minutes or less. That's your irresistible pitch deck that's going to get someone super excited to work with you and to invest in your project. Now, let's say you're not doing more of the one-to-one investment raising. If you don't do that, of course, there are crowdfunding sources, right? We have Kickstarter, we have Indiegogo. That's all fine. And that comes, I was talking to a filmmaker this week about this. And, for people who have tried this, it can be super successful. So you get people to come on in and they get shirts because they donated and they participated and they got to feel like they were a part of it. But it does put steps and administration back on you, right? Because now you have to fulfill and send the shirts and the posters and the thank yous and all of that. Now, there are other platforms like WeFunder or Seed Invest. And these are platforms I'm not personally familiar with. My clients have kind of gone more one of two ways. And so this is newer, but I wanted to at least mention it as part of this video and as you were thinking about all the different ways that you want to raise money. But this is kind of micro investing platforms. So I thought I would at least mention it. All right, so then back to kind of what I was talking about. Let's say you are in the position that you are raising funds and people are going to directly donate to you. This is all super excited, but I need to mention, please, make sure you are kind of spending time with the people who are going to invest with you. Because what you don't think about is the check-ins and the obligations and the communications with your investors. And so if you have people who might not be kind of a fit for what you're doing because they might want to be super hands-on and that's just not what you're trying to do. You're trying to have someone who's able to just kind of join, be a part of it, participate in revenue, but maybe they're not invited to production days. Like these are all things you need to think about. So before you kind of join forces with someone, make sure you kind of have an idea of who the person is. Are they the personality type that you want to not deal with, but you know what I'm saying, be talking with and sharing time with? This is really important. But beyond that, let's say you find a couple of people. So I do this all the time through my law office, and we'll have filmmakers who are raising a couple $100,000. They get certain investors that's might be between like 5 different people. And so what we have to do is we have to decide how we're going to do the paperwork. And you have one of two options. One, you can do traditional investment raising, which requires disclosures, pro formas, operating agreements, and all the things required by securities law. Or the much cheaper route is going to be just setting up a company for the film. You become the owner of the company as the filmmaker, as the owner, and then you have the investors join as members of that LLC. Now, it's really important that you get what's called an operating agreement. Okay. And so you'll have an attorney kind of draft this for you, and you clarify in it that investors probably won't have much participation. They probably won't have much control over anything that happens because, that's just not the structure we typically do. We want the filmmaker to do what they need to do creatively, and the investors are secured in their position as co-owners in the business. So if the business, meaning the film, makes money, they make money. And that's a way that we are able to completely sidestep having to go through all the additional disclosures and paperwork and regulations with securities law. So that's amazing. Now, as far as kind of where you go from there, from the production to development to shooting the thing and making sure you have all your agreements for the film, that's all super important. But the one piece that, I really want you to keep in mind is make sure you set up a limited liability company for this. The entire way that we are structuring this is so that you have a limited liability company. Okay, do it in the state that you live. Yeah, you have an operating agreement, you get the members who are the investors to join, they sign the paperwork, but you do have to actually do that step of setting up an LLC. Okay? So, when it comes to, how to do an investment raise cheaply, but then also how to stay legally compliant, that's the full overview. And you definitely want to get help. So if you need some help, you can definitely contact my office, Delgado Entertainment Law. We do this kind of thing all the time, and we can help you and your film have success.